Letia, welcome to the Dark Night of the Soul Unwrapped.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Fiona.
My absolute pleasure. So, I think it would be good to start at the beginning. What was happening in your life around the time your Dark Night of the Soul began?
I was actually experiencing and had been experiencing a separation in my marriage. But even more than that, it was me realizing that I wasn't really honoring me completely. Like there was a big part of me that was not being honored. And I had realized that I wasn't following my path. I wasn't being seen or heard or held by my partner, but also by myself. That's where the work began, or so to speak.
How did the work begin when you realized that you weren't honoring a big part of you? How did the work proceed?
It started actually, so the dark night of the soul, actually, the path towards that started 3 years prior when I decided that I wanted to follow the path of sacred sexuality. And because I had found that path, and it was the path that I found that honored and it like made me feel alive and seen and heard. And also, that path was a path that no Navajo medicine woman could walk.
I'd love to understand a bit more about what the path of sacred sexuality is, what that meant for you.
So I'm a Navajo medicine woman, and the prophecy that I was brought up on was heal the woman, heal humanity. And because we are in a soul sickness now, and among the humans, we are in a soul sickness now all over in every society in the world. And I began to see that. So my initiation path actually started when I was 4, when my elders they noticed that power in me, and they started to protect me in certain ways, like I couldn't have any pets, for example. And then I've been taught the songs and prayers, and then when I was in college, my initiation prayers had begun to where I could hold space, right? Now, this path of sacred sexuality itself is a path that is not right or it's a path that is frowned upon by the Navajo people. And because like sexuality is a powerful energy, and I can see why it is um, not aligned, not spoken about, because it is powerful. I have seen it harm people, you know, but I didn't know it could heal people. And that's what I found when I entered into the space is I felt the power in me. And the thing about it is that the power is within me, within my body. And that power activated. It was like the way I described it was when I entered into that space for the very first time, I was extremely obese, and I was just like wanting something, but I didn't know what it was. I had had my 3rd initiation prayer, and I already knew, even before my initiations, that what we were doing wasn't working. And it didn't feel, I mean, even though I love my Navajo prayers, they're very powerful. It is the most powerful alchemy I've seen in all of the world. Even then, I was like, there's something not here, you know? And what that was eros. And it's the one thing that all the medicine men and women, especially them, they actively suppress in their bodies. And I've learned, now I've become a sacred sexual practitioner what I've learned is that when eros has been suppressed in the body, it actually harms you. And so while they are rightly so saying taboo about it, because when eros is wielded wrongly, it can harm. But also, they don't know that if you also suppress it in your body, it causes harm into your body as well. And then, so I found that path, and it clicked. Okay, this is the missing piece. And so, after that experience, I spent a whole year, once a week for a whole year, meeting with the medicine men of the Navajo, trying to convince them to provide me permission to become a sacred sexual practitioner. And I provide like evidence and science reports and going back to the history, like, bringing up like hermetics, that was called, and bringing all that in for a whole year. And finally, they said, okay, you can become one. I mean, like, I could have just walked it without permission, but it was important for me to receive the permission from the elders before I became on this path of a practitioner. And when I did, everything aligned. Like, I found a scholarship to go to it. It was all paid for. The flight was paid for. And I became a practitioner. And I also wrote a book about it. It's a spiritual technology, and it's ahead of its time for my people. But hopefully, in a few years or long after I'm gone, the book can be there as a way for them to say, hey, you know what? This is a path I could follow, step-by-step instructions on how to become a hollow bone, and like how to wield my eros in a way that heals my body. And so during that time when I was beta testing my thought, that's when I entered into the dark soul.
So there's so much richness in this already, and I definitely want to come back to the notion of soul sickness and hermeticism. For anybody who's not heard the word eros before, could you say a little bit about what is meant by eros?
Yes. So eros it comes from the Greek, but the way that I see it, it's the energy of desire. It's not just like sexual energy. It is the creative force, that pulls you towards connection, feeling alive, making things from scratch. Like making your food is an act of eros, right? Connecting, like what we're talking here, this is an act of eros. Like we are making a connection, we're having a conversation. Um, but it can also be physical. That's mainly when people hear eros, they think that like physical acts of desire being expressed between a couple people. They think that, but it's a myriad of things. It is life itself.
That definition of it really resonates with me. It's like an understanding of life force or desire or libido in a much bigger way than
Hmm.
simply sexuality. So how, after this profound initiation into sacred sexuality, how did that lead into the dark night of the soul?
Oh, that is a fascinating story. So my beta testing was on my book called Sacred Flirtship. It's not out just yet. It is finished. It's in a book form.
Beautiful. So just to say again, the title is Sacred Flirtship.
Right. Yeah. And so the the thing behind that is it is we have to use our eros energy within our body, and we meet with, so I got very lucky because I found a man who was willing to beta test this with me, and there was physical attraction between us, meaning that I smelled good, and also I thought that he smelled good. So there was that physical attraction between us. But we made this agreement around a thing that I made called conscious connection. And it comes with like rituals and boundaries. And here are our agreements, right? And we ask like a bunch of questions like, how do you want to be held when you're activated? How do you want to be seen, or how do you want to be heard when you have an expression that is uncomfortable to be said? And plus a bunch of things like, how do you handle sexual desire? Do you know if you, when shadows are controlling the way that you're acting? A lot of questions. It's a big, like, 5-page thing. And the way I see it is like it front loads the connection, meaning that like we bring up all the potential problems that could happen in a connection to the front of the connection. And we talk about how we want to be held in those experiences. And then we put it aside, and then the end result is a thriving connection. So, but the first year, it's been over a year now. So the idea behind this, after that's all been set, is that like you just meet each other, and then you feel this like eros desire, the sexual energy wanting to come up for the other person, but you hold that energy in your body, meaning that it's not acted on. Like you're not having sex, you're not making out, you're just holding it in your body, and it's so uncomfortable because it then begins to reveal all these like self-sabotaging behaviors that are alive within you. All these like, oh my God, he doesn't want me. His anxieties come up. That's where the work happens. And that's what my technology, spiritual technology is. It is like it reveals where you need to work on yourself, and then you do shadow work in it. You sit with it uncomfortably. And then, so I did that with him for a whole year. Like for a whole year. I mean, there were moments where like I was on my hands and knees just crying so badly. Like I felt like I wasn't going to survive it. And I thought that was bad, right? And this was like in March of last year. I was like, oh my God, this is so painful. Like there was a lot of like, like just old shadows, like just these like old shadows that have become your identity begins to reveal itself like, oh my gosh, like I really think I'm not worthy enough. I really think I'm not wanted. I really believe this in my body, but it's important that you have that person there who says no, so you are wanted, because they become the anchor. Because as you know, like we cannot enter into shadow work without anchors, and that whole conscious connection is the anchor as well, right? And so is the partner. And we flip flop. Like, so I'll go into a shadow, and then I'll just like, oh my God, just like projection, 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 like you hate me, like you don't want me, why this and that, they start to come up. And then his job is only to hold you and say, that's not my truth. This is only like, they're not to fix anything, just to hold you through it. And the moment they start to fix a thing, then their shadow activates too. It's really a highly advanced way of maintaining a connection with a person, because you're holding eros energy in your, which is so potent. And I've learned so much. So I thought every like shadow I met was bad, right? And then October came, and then it was the worst one. And so the way I can explain shadows is like, have you played Mario?
I actually haven't. No.
Okay, so maybe people who are listening have played Mario, right? Funny analogy, but it really works. Like, so when you play Mario, there's like many worlds you play, and then you get to the final world of like the Bowser, the big monster. But every world that you enter has its own challenges that you have to become familiar with. And sometimes the first time that you try the world, like you're going to fail a few times. And so that's how I see the shadows. You find a shadow, and you're going to fail a few times, but you're also becoming familiar with the territory of that shadow. And then the way shadows work is the first time you meet a shadow is probably the oldest one. And then the next time is the most recent one. So the end and the beginning meet. But we have to weave our way back to the first one. And it's not easy. That's where that world analogy comes in. So you meet the first world, you become familiar with it, you fail a few times, but then eventually you always win, right? And then the next world is a whole new world, whole new challenges, whole new territory. And then you fail a few times, but then you win again, Um, there isn't ever a time in history where the monsters have won. There isn't a story that's out there that says the monsters won. There's always we win, but sometimes it's harder than other times, and that's what actually held me through them. And so the dark night of the soul was when I was just so in it, like I was crying like nothing was real. It's as if like I wasn't ever gonna feel okay ever again. I was like, there's no way out of this. But at the exact same time, I was having all of these transmissions happening, these downloads, like the lessons from the old shadow, meeting my inner child again and hugging my inner child and just crying and feeling that intense familiarity. Like, oh my gosh, I haven't met you. I haven't seen you for a while. I'm happy to have you back. And then there's like a moment of happy. So like it like oscillates between like happiness and like gratitude down to like, oh my God, the sucks, And it's not like a medium. It's an oscillation, happy, bad, But the anchors held me through, right? The anchors, like, no, because you have to have anchors through shadow work. You have to have anchors. You have to have boundaries, because you can get stuck down there if you're not without anchors, and that's very scary. And then I fell down and it sucked really bad, but I didn't come back up until I was shot into rebirth. It was a complete full body. So I like to say that we have 5 bodies. So all my bodies were in alignment with the I need to surrender. It was a whole body. I have no choice but to surrender into this is my moment. I have no choice. I can't escape it. And then so I just surrendered into the moment. And then I just kept on surrendering, letting the body just release. And then I didn't know what was happening. All I knew was that I needed just to have this big, immense, emotional, cathartic release, right? So I was like bawling and I was crying but at the exact same time in my mind, what was happening was I was meeting the shadows. That weave started happening. That weave of like this shadow, like, okay, this is the shadows. This is the path of the shadows back down to the original shadow when I was 5 years old. And there was a point to where my brother was murdered in 2017. When I hit that part in my mind, I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And I thought that like anger was going to push me through that, like I'm going to meet the murderer's face in my mind and then fuck you to him. And then I'm going to fuck him up. But that wasn't it. It was complete visceral forgiveness and love. And that surprised me. That sent me into a big shock. And then I surrendered even more to that. And I cried harder. At that time, my body was like shaking so bad. And I couldn't stop that part because in my mind, I was weaving back, And so from there off towards like the original shadow, the first shadow that harmed me, that became a part of my identity, those were the shadows that were made, that wove to my adulthood. And so I wove that all the way back. and each one I met with complete love and forgiveness, and that is so powerful. It's stronger than anger. It's stronger than like whatever hate feelings that we think is strong. It's so much stronger. And I had never felt that much love in my body or forgiveness ever in my life. Like I've said I'm sorry before. I said I forgive you, but I never felt that feeling in my body, like in like every soul in my body, every cell in my body. And that was interesting. And I just surrendered to it. Like love can hold me. And I just surrendered to it. Like it was strong enough to hold me. And then boom, back to the first shadow, which was even more love, more forgiveness. And then by the end of it, I was, like, so tired. I was like, "Oh my god, I can't talk to no one. I can't speak to anyone. I have to hold space for myself?" And then I went home. I It was a big release. I just felt, like, just completely exhausted. Like, "Oh my god, I have to get in the car. I have to get myself home somehow." But I felt tired. And then on the way home, I was crying. 'Cause it was still, like, landing, like, my experience. It was so that was wild. Oh my god, what happened? I couldn't comprehend it, and I was like, "Oh my god, I forgave the murderer of my brother," and actually, when I was initiated, my medicine man said that I will be ready for my 5th initiation when I can face the murderer of my brother and forgive him and help him from that place. And I thought, "Fuck that, I'm gonna fuck with him, Imma give him some herbs that'll kill him," like, I was so mad, like, I didn't think that was possible, but then that happened, and I was like, "Wow, I can actually feel like I can help him?" And that made me cry because I wanted to hold on to that anger. I was like, "I shouldn't be angry, though, I should hold on to it," so I was really mad that I couldn't hold on to that anger. That, like, polarity was there, like, hold the anger, but hold the love, like, it was like just hitting each other, right after that experience, and so I made it home, and I just walked inside and just, like, cried in my husband's arms. I just cried while he held me, and then he put me in bed, and I slept with my turquoise on and everything. I just slept, and then the next week was what I'm calling the spiritual flu because my physical body, it was okay, it was not hurting. But my spiritual body was in so much pain, and I'm calling this spiritual flu because I called my medicine man. I was like, "Something's wrong with me. I'm under attack. Someone psychically attacked me. Do a prayer for me?" And then he investigated for me because we can investigate things like that to see who our enemies are or who is causing us harm. And he said, "There's no one who is harming you." And he said that you have so much protection. This is a spiritual flu. And he already saw what I experienced. He said, "I see that you experienced something intensely emotional. Is that what happened?" And I said, Yes, that's what happened." And then he had the words for it, and I didn't have the words for it. And he said it was a spiritual flu, and then he said that I have to do nothing, but it hurt so bad. And it was like a rebirth, and I've given birth like 3 times in my life with no medication, and that was painful, but this was more painful than that, I think, because I was giving birth while being born at the same time. And then the spiritual flu, the symptoms for that is, your head starts to spin, but it's not even the head that's spinning, it's like some, like, energetic form that's spinning in them in the head space, but it's not your head because 'cause you're not, like, falling over. It's just, like, the energy is spinning, and then it affects your eyes, and it also affects the way, like, you can view things, and the energy in your body gets depleted so fast. So, like, I only had energy for half the day. After that, I was like, I cannot be anywhere but my bed. And the part that I think people don't understand is how um, depleting it is on the body when this happens. When every time any hardcore emotional expression happens, it depletes your body of everything, all the nutrients, the minerals. It gets used. And I found out that magnesium is actually very big when you're doing any kind of work with the emotions. It depletes the magnesium stores first.
Thank you. There's so much richness and fullness in all of this, and it would be great to delve more into some of this. I really appreciate the phrase spiritual flu. I'd not heard that before, and I think that's a great description. I love what you said about weaving. I mean, that's very much my experience of it, that there's a weave or an oscillation going on when we're in this terrain. And I think it would be good just to come back to what you were saying about old shadows forming the basis of our identity, or that they
Mhm.
became our identity. And I totally relate to that. That's exactly my experience. And how when we start to encounter those shadows, it isn't, as you say, this sort of easy one step, two step thing. I love what you said about the failing at that we're coming back in and coming back in and coming back in. And it takes a real weave over time to get back to the origin of each shadow. Is there any more that you'd say about what happens in that weaving, and how that weaving changes how we perceive our identity, how we experience our identity?
Absolutely. So, the ability for me to view, to have seen that these were a part of my identity is a very advanced way of viewing oneself. Like, people don't have that ability. And I think it's because of who I am as a medicine woman and the trainings I've had as a medicine woman. So I don't want anyone to feel bad if they don't see that. I don't know where it comes from. I think it's from my training as a medicine woman. But it is in psychology. If you also read Carl Jung, he talks about it being a part of your identity. So that information is out there. I just don't want anyone to feel bad if they don't feel it within their body. Give yourself some compassion with that, because it's very important that you hold yourself in that state of mind, like compassionate state of mind. Like, it's okay to fail. It's okay. That's a part of the shadow. It can be magnetizing. It can blur your whole sense of reality. That's why you have to have anchors. I want to stress that anchors are so important, and boundaries are so important, and having a person to hold you through it as an anchor as well is so important. The identity part is, like, I believe that early on, because when we are under the age of 8, our mind kind of weaves in between the theta brainwave, where we're hyper alert and we're sponges, right? So that's why my own kids who are under 8, I don't spank them. I don't harm them in that way, because their identity is being formed. I mean, I can't prevent all traumas, but thankfully I can help them with all the knowledge I know. Like, um, so anything that happens before the age of 8 is becomes our identity. And rebirth, in my experience, I felt this when I when I wove back to the first trauma. Then I felt this, like, big sense of, like, love and forgiveness, and then it was released from my body, and I felt it release from my from my nervous system. It was a very cathartic release. And I just knew I had to like breathe and exhale, move it, and then it was gone, passed into the ethers of the universe, right? But what happened after that was this hollowness within me. I felt hollow, and that can feel scary too. Like there's a hollowness. And so back to the idea of like identity. If you don't understand that this hollowness is now that part of who you were before that shadow was removed from the body is now gone. And so that part of your identity is, it feels hollow, but it's an opportunity to just find things that you really want now. Like, what excites me now? Who can I build within me that I decide I want to be now?
Beautifully put. I mean, I think we can't say enough how visceral this process is. You know, I've had those experiences similar to what you're describing, where there's shaking, there's
Mhm.
contracting, there's sobbing. You know, when we reach back into those places of them, those moments in which identity was formed by trauma of whatever description that was, that has to be an embodied experience. We can't do it. I mean, I'm reminded of what you said about there being five bodies or layers of body. And in my experience, when they're aligned, as it were, in the seeing of the extent of the shadow, there's something very different that happens. You know,
Yeah,
something really profound
exactly.
when we see the full extent of it and how much it's obscured us in our lives, then I love what you say about the hollowness, because it can feel a bit weird when something
Yeah,
leaves, because it's
uncomfortable.
so deeply familiar, right? It's
Yeah.
almost like a sense of better the devil we know than this
Yeah,
strange
but while
hollowness.
you're in the experience of that, though, it feels really scary and like you're mourning the only person that you ever knew, the only version of you that you ever knew, and memories of who you were and people who you've known become the pop up, but they feel so far away. And then, like, you make that decision there. Almost every part of integration after this experience, this cathartic release, is a moment of making a decision. Do I wanna hold on to the old person, the old, because it's gonna pop up, you know? Or do I want to just continue onward and just move, and because, like, but you'll feel it in your body, like, this doesn't feel aligned anymore, but also there are some beautiful moments, you know, in my past, and, like, you're mourning all of it, like, your memories of an elder, you're like, "Oh my god, don't lose memory of them." Like, things like that, you know? It's like you're just, it just is a hard time. It's actually harder than the actual shadow work and the rebirth. Rebirth was painful, and that was hard, but this is harder in another way because you're actually feeling this hollowness, the mourning of this version of you that you only knew, like, you've known no other version of you, and that's hard to mourn. You're like, "Oh my gosh," and then you're feeling like, "I'm sorry I neglected you for so long," like, and then when you're feeling sad about that, you're like, "Oh my gosh, I was so sad about, like, how I didn't realize that I am love, that I can feel happy, I can follow a path of pleasure, it's not bad, you know, I am beautiful and strong, and that my body is magic, it's the most powerful healing, walking, talking machine in the universe." And it's hard to get to that mindset and hold it there because because that pain of like, "Oh, the old version of me, it's just gone now, it's all you ever knew," and people can get stuck there. I met a person who's been stuck there. They get stuck in the pain of it, and it's very, very real because people have lost their families from being stuck in there. They have lost work, family, and friends, you know, and they don't know how to come back out. And so that's why, like, you need an anchor, and so you need someone to hold you through it because I want to be held. Just hold me, feed me grapes, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I'd like to come back to anchors again in a bit. You just said something a moment ago about when we come back to ourselves, that sense of, I'm sorry I neglected you. And you said earlier, I'm happy to have you back. For me, those moments are some of the most beautiful,
Mm,
that we go through all of the pain that you were just describing and the mourning and the grief. And there's this profound coming back to ourselves in a way that we've never known before.
exactly,
That when these old identities release or fall apart, we actually get to feel into and experience like, oh, this is what this is, meaning like, oh, this is the actual sort of stuff of me.
exactly. Mhm. And I wanna also add as well, because I think there's a common misconception that when we enter into shadow work and we follow the protocols of whatever practitioner is helping you through it, that, like, at the end of it, it's just gone. Like, the shadows are gone, you know? But that's not really how it works. They will always be there. They become your friends now. They become a part of your boundaries probably, depending on what kind it is, you know? And the way I see it is they become your friends. You can meet a person who maybe is a bad person, you know? And then the shadows will activate. And then people think, "I thought I worked through this," but no, it's your body communicating saying, "No, honey, this is a person who will harm you. We cannot be around this person. It's not aligned with our highest person," you know? Or, like, if you are in a relationship, you know, and, one of your boundary because, like, it's still a part of your identity, like, my example for myself is that even though I worked through all the shadows, you know, and it was released, and I'm now rebuilding my identity on what actually brings me joy, building the me that I want, you know. Um, the old experience of me is actually still there. Um, and so I have a strong passion for consciously connecting to people. Like, I want to experience this person in a way that I understand them, so they're heard and seen and held that in a way that they want to be seen, heard, and held. As well as for me, like, I want to be seen, heard, and held in a certain way. And here's how we discover that, you know? And so when those boundaries are broken, you know, that's a part of like, oh, the shadow's coming up. I'm feeling not heard, not seen, not wanted. But that's just communication saying, hey, this person is crossing this boundary that we discussed. And it's a opportunity to slow down, to breathe and bring it up. You know, my boundaries, like, I'm not feeling heard and seen what's going on with your life, you know, what's happening there? Can I understand it better, you know? And I know it sounds like a whole lot of work, but the way I see it is that, like, either way, disagreements will happen, you know, arguments will happen, boundaries will get crossed, you know, and having a way rather than just walking into it blindly with no map and fighting, you know, like, having a map helps you to figure it out so you can thrive all other parts of your day.
I'm so glad you said this about shadow work because I think often people imagine that, you come along, you do your work, and that's the end of that. And as we know, as you've just been saying, it's absolutely not that. I think for me, one of the reasons why I'm so grateful to have done this work and to be doing it is that it means that I have a completely different relationship now with those parts of me. And as you said, the old identities become friends. And as you were talking, I was remembering the first time a few years ago where I was staying in a hostel and there was somebody there that my body had a strong response to, really went into an activated fear state. And it was the first time that rather than saying to myself, well, I can't see what's wrong with this person. I mean, this must be some old thing. What's wrong with me? I didn't do that for the first time. And I
Mm.
treated that activation as a friend, as something that was holding information for me, even though I didn't know what that
Mm.
information was on a conscious intellectual level at that time. And I was able to slow down and say, I will stay with you for as long as you need me
Mm.
to until whatever it is revealed. And so I think it's such a different way of being in relationship and being in conflict. I think
Yes.
it's hard to explain or to convey just how different it is
Mhm.
when we're able to come into things in the way that we were just describing.
Right. Yes, it is, and, it's really powerful when you can slow down and breathe because, like, I have been trying to find a way in integration, and I'm actually writing a book on integration now because there's nothing out there about it, and people always say, "It's the most important thing," but no one educates you about it, so in my book, it will have everything in it. But I've been trying to find a way because even though you've done shadow work, you have to replenish the body with whole foods, like, you have to, otherwise, you'll get stuck in overwhelm and anxiety and stress. Because like, when you integrate, the capacity for what was revealed or worked through, that's where it becomes bigger. And oftentimes, integration's harder than shadow work because you're sitting with the medicine, the downloads, all the transmissions that are gonna come. And unfortunately, I'm sorry to say this, but you have to move slow through it. The next activating breathwork session, the next intense release thing, you have to, like, slow down, and that's it. And it sucks.
So agree with that. I think often we're so used to this idea of things being fast. And for me, there's something about understanding that everything we're describing happens in what I call deep time. It's the time of rocks, it's the time of trees and the sea. It's happening in a different time scale than we're used to thinking in. And I
Yeah.
think there's something so important that the slowness itself brings in. I learnt this the hard way in my dark night of the soul by not having any understanding of what was required,
Mhm.
stumbling around in it,
Yeah,
basically.
and, like, your body will speak too if you're not slowing down enough, like, all of that depletion that happened during the experience of shadow work release, right? It will speak because your organs will be stressed out. You'll get acne on your face, or your hair will start falling out, or your muscles will get weak, body physical pains of some kind. Just means slow down and just focus on eating and nourishing your body and actually being outside. I have been like trying to find because slowing down is just like, what is that? Oh my god, being slow sucks. Like, I have learned, patience like I've never known before in integration. I'm like, "Man, this patience sucks, but I need it?"
Certainly for me, what I found is that combination of the slowness, patience, and understanding that often all I've needed to do in those moments is just lie and breathe.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's it. That's all that my body needs. That's all that my being needs. And I think that's so counterintuitive from the sort of old paradigm of thinking, isn't it? Which is like, got to do stuff, got to fix it, got to make it better. When all of that was stripped away and I realized like, oh, all I needed was simply to lie and breathe and to breathe
Mhm.
slowly and deeply and naturally. I was really touched by what you said about the deep experiences of forgiveness. And I think what I find is that often when people feel under pressure to forgive because, they've heard teachings of, oh, you should forgive, or
Mhm.
there's understandably a movement away from that because it feels like there's a being pushed into that. In my experience, when we have the kind of experiences that you described, they come completely unbidden. I mean, I've had spontaneous experiences of love and forgiveness, and the idea that I should forgive was nowhere in my thinking.
Mhm.
Literally, I mean, as you said, you felt like, oh, there would be anger, there would be.
Mhm.
It's kind of blindsiding, right? On one level, isn't it? When we find ourselves in this huge wash of unexpected love and forgiveness.
Mhm.
Is there anything else you would add about the difference between the experience you were describing and the idea that we should forgive?
I don't know. I honestly, I don't think I would have arrived at that space without the spontaneity of it. Not that the hate was controlling me. I often, one of my practices every day is just a habitual gratitude practice, habitual gratitude. I think that's very important too. As you move before you get into shadow work, get into the habit of practicing gratitude every day. That will hold you through it, you know. And it wasn't a thought. I thought I had forgiven because my medicine man said forgive, you know, and then like you'll be able to get your fifth initiation, you know. So I was like, I did, but no, I did not. I did not. I still held a lot of hate. Um, but I think I actually had to actually feel in that moment because I don't think I ever sat with um the reality that he was murdered before that surrender, you know? But also it's very important for the people who are hearing this to know that I don't do, therapy. So I didn't have a therapist I was talking to. Um, I just have my personal somatic practices and my medicine man. So I hadn't ever worked through the reality of my brother being murdered before that moment where I sat with it, where I was like, "Okay, he's really gone," you know? And so I think, that's actually what helped, you know, was just surrendering into that moment of the reality that he really is gone. He really has been murdered, and this is a murderer still alive, you know? And then just like, also feeling how horrible it feels that the murderer is alive still, you know, and just like not ignoring that pain that came with that and just like just holding myself through it and just being witnessing that feeling like he's still alive and I hate it, being honest with that feeling, you know, like I don't like it. And then like just bawling through it, just like breathing through it, you know? And then and then that spontaneous love and forgiveness came overwhelmingly, and I was like, "Oh my god," and then I surrendered some more, and that was crazy.
I so appreciate you sharing that. Because obviously it's a huge thing to have lost your brother in that way. But also I think what you described about the surrender into the reality of what you were feeling in each moment, in my experience, is so key. It isn't like jumping over the hatred in order to somehow get to forgiveness
Mhm.
because you think you should. I think it can't be overstated just how much surrendering into the reality of the moment then takes us on its own journey.
Mhm.
And we can't know at the beginning of that surrender where we'll end up with it. We can't say, oh, well, if I surrender, I'll end up at this point of forgiveness, or if I do X, then Y. And I think that's one of the things that makes it, I think, hard to do because before we experience it, I don't think we can really grasp what surrender is.
Right, yeah,
Right.
and I don't think it can be spoken through either. I think it's a somatic thing that happens, and then once it happens, you just move on with life. No one needs to hear about it all the time, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, there's been so many moments of surrender that have either happened here in this room, just with me on my own, or maybe with one other person on Zoom, or in a room downstairs. You know, we're not talking something that requires an audience or narrating afterwards. I mean,
Mhm.
very often I think these are such profound internal experiences. There's just two more things that it would be great to touch on
Absolutely, yeah.
if we can. One is anchors, because I think this is something that often gets missed. In my experience, if we don't have access to an anchor in the form of a person like you described, there are other things, other objects that might serve as anchors in their stead. I mean, next to me here, I've got a shelf full of rocks. And for
Mhm.
me, rocks are my anchor. It could be water, it could be lots of things. But yeah, what else would you say about anchors?
The anchors are very important, and they're so special, so love is an anchor. You know, so what I've done is, and it's, you know, I see shadow work as kind of like a psychological warfare, you know? It's like,
Yeah.
you're not that
Definitely.
intense, but it is intense, right? And,
Yeah.
one of the things that happens when people enter into shadow work without support, without an anchor, is they get activated into one example is like the dark feminine for the females, and it's magnetizing, it's magnetic, it's beautiful even, you know? It's just like, "Oh my gosh, she's alive," and th they feel so alive. In fact, when I was in my shadows all last year, I was in my dark feminine, and I felt alive in a way that I never felt before. I was like, I had a voice. I was, saying what I could say and just like demanded to be seen, but I was like, erotic as well, you know. But that's not the destination, right? You have to move past the dark feminine to enter into the light feminine where you feel peace in your body, like you're still erotic, but there's peace in your body. It's not announced, and that's where I arrived when I went all the way through it. And now anchors is why I got there, because I knew there's like this dark feminine was magnetizing. It was so alive, but I knew that wasn't the destination for some reason. And I moved all the way through it into what I'm calling light feminine. And that's actually where people arrive when they're older. They're embodied in it, but anchored is why I got there. And the one of the anchors that worked with me was people who loved me in my life, whether it's friends or family. I had them write me a handwritten letter that I would put aside, and I would always when I'm feeling bad, when my shadow's controlling me in shadow work, and I'm just like, "I'm not worthy of love. I'm not worthy of this and that." I read the letters,
Beautiful.
like anger or, things happen. I read the letters. The other one as well is, boundaries with yourself. Like, it's important that you have your boundaries worked on before shadow work. Like, here are my boundaries. Like, um, one of the, examples for me as a medicine woman is I'm not allowed to handshake. So that's already a boundary, you know? So I call the path of shadow work the trickster path because, like, you can get stuck in any part of it, and it feels alive, you know? And so,
Yes.
and, like, if and, like, I'm in a part of my of the work, and I think my mind says, "You can shake someone's hand, it's okay, it's not a boundary, it's not bad." Then my boundaries will say, "You actually can't. Your medicine man said that you can. There's a purpose for that," you know? And so having those boundaries, active before doing shadow work is important because otherwise you could harm yourself and then have regrets.
And just to say, I think for me and for many people in the dark night, the the shadow work just began as part of the dark night. I mean, not everybody gets the choice to sequence it, and those same anchors can be useful in any necessary in all parts of the process, as it were. I'd just like to touch on something that you mentioned right at the start, which is this phrase soul sickness. I
Mhm,
mean, that really, really speaks to me. It makes complete sense that we're in these times of navigating both our individual soul sickness, but also massive collective soul sickness that
mhm,
that we're seeing.
right.
Is there anything else that you'd like to say about that?
Oh, that could be a whole podcast. So the Navajos have, emergence story. They have a story about how there was a monster that was, around the people. The monster was harming the people, eating the animals, eating the people, and these warriors, um, they're called the twin warriors. They defeated the monster, and then humanity was saved. Um, and I think that we have the same monsters in this world now, but I call them the invisible monsters. And this is where my path is as a medicine woman, as a breath coach, as FT coach, sexual healer, is off for the purposes of healing what I can in the soul sickness of the humanity, following the prophecy of heal the woman, heal humanity, right? Um, and these invisible monsters are everywhere. They're in our food, in the processed foods we eat. They're in these synthetic fabrics that touch our bodies and harm our hormones. They're in the PFAS, the forever chemicals that's in the paper towels, the plastic spatula, it's everywhere. And people are defending it. They're defending these monsters. I see it in my medicine men who actively feed their body these poisons of processed foods. Their words become harsher. They end up speaking badly about a person when, like, uh-oh, like something like has become imbalanced within their bodies, and that's what it is they're feeding their bodies, it's McDonald's or something bad, and, it's actually anti-hollow bone. So, and as a hollow bone, things just flow through you, like, like these energies won't get stuck in your body. And, soul sickness also appears in people who get stuck in shadow work. They s they feel alive and powerful, but they're acting from their pain still by hating on men, hating on females. They're acting out their pain, while holding spaces for people, and that is a harm being done in the spiritual body of the person, of the energy of the person, and it's their bodies remain fractured, which in my opinion, aids in the soul sickness of humanity being spread more and more and more, And so it's just it's like this element just feeding itself, and it's really sad for me to watch.
Absolutely. Yeah, me too. It's a source of mourning and grief, I think is part of facing the nature and the reality of
Mhm.
it. Letia, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Before we go, is there anything else you'd like to share with people who are right in it just now in the dark night?
Yeah, if you're in it, hold yourself with extreme compassion. Remember that you are strong and you're powerful, and love is your birthright. It is abundant. There's no need for prayers to be made to receive love because you are love. It is abundant in this world. And as much as you can, sit in discomfort, but feed your bodies high quality meats, whole foods, and it will pass.
Thank you.
It was fun being here. Thanks for the invitation.